Welcome everyone to another webinar in the International Ecopsychology Society series on ecopsychological perspectives of the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Julianne Sky Arbor. I'm the co-representative for the United States along with Dr. Tina Fields for IES. I'm your host today, and today's webinar, this is a fifth in a series, and I'm so pleased to have two amazing women who are our representatives in IES. We have Dr. Andrea Marais and Ann Sterckx, and I'm going to tell you more about them as we go on. But their subject today is Beyond Lost and Recovered Connections. So for those of you who aren't familiar with IES, the International Ecopsychology Society is a vibrant, growing, diverse community of psychology professionals and other professionals and students in the ecopsychology field who want to align their work with the care of the world. We promote the field of ecopsychology through courses and certificate programs in applied ecopsychology, eco-tuners, at 8 different international IES schools in Europe, North America, and South America. We also have fabulous biannual conferences that take place in different countries each time. And this is a fantastic reunion of IES representatives, members, and Earth allies and friends from all over the world. Our next Congress has been postponed to 2022, but will take place in Brazil. So if you'd like more information on that, please check the IES website, and you can sign up for our mailing list if you're not already on it, and I will give you that information at the end of the webinar. All right, well, as I said, we have two wonderful presenters today, and they're each going to take about 20 minutes to present, and then at the end we'll have questions and answers. And just please know that this is a collaborative discussion we're going to have at the end. We don't assume that we know all the answers about the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're offering our thoughts. So let me introduce Ann Sterckx to you. Ann Sterckx leads the EarthWise Education School for Ecopsychology and Nature Connection in Belgium. She is in the Ph.D. program at the University of Antwerp, and she's focusing on the relationship between nature connectedness, self-care, and professional practice with primary health practitioners. We are proud to announce that Ann will be our IES representative for Belgium. Yay, Ann! And we will be officially presenting her with her certificate of being a representative next week. So congratulations, Ann, and welcome to the IES family. We're so happy to have you. And Belgium, and the country of Belgium. So for this talk, Ann will take us on a reflective journey and explore with us the potentiality of liminal space during the period of COVID-19. Her presentation is called, Will COVID-19 Be Transformative? And I'll hand it over to you, Ann. Thank you.
Hello to all. First of all, I want to invite all of you to take a deep breath, and then you keep it 7 numbers, or you count 7 until 7, and then you breathe out. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still. And listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices, dreamed new images, and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. Will COVID-19 be transformative? I will elaborate this question by two mind breakers that I had myself during or since we were confronted with COVID-19. You might have same questions, or maybe just started with you. It depends where you are and hold this phase with COVID-19. For me here in Belgium, I want to say or to invite you to listen to me as I am a white privileged person and I live in a good home and I have a tiny garden. So from there are my reflections. So my first question is, can COVID-19 be seen as a liminal space? I will explain, of course, what is a liminal space. Some of you might know it, some others not. And then two, what will be the answer? Can COVID-19 be transformative? And again, these are just my reflections, and I'm very looking forward to yours afterwards. So what is liminal space? It is a little bit like the breath or the moments of in between from that first breath that you took, 7 counts, and then that sigh, but that moment in between. So what you felt, it comes from the Latin word limen, and it means a threshold. I can't say it very well in English, but it's such a beautiful word. Threshold is something that, like, you open a door and it's between the inside from your house and the outside world. Just that moment you're going to take that step is very short, that moment. And in time, in literature, we can read that you can also talk about liminal space between eras or epochs, like they say. So it's just that space in between. You have before and after, but often it's something that just comes to you. It happens to you. You really can't, we can try to make it, but that's difficult. However, sometimes in nature, when we guide people, we do it. But look to that picture. I love it so much, this kind of places. Why? Because it is a place of transition. Just there in the middle where that tree stands. You see, you have the grass and then the earth, and just when you walk on that line, something like this, or you step over it, going back, that place is very interesting. From there comes the word, and I love it very much. I had to practice to pronounce it, but when I heard it for the first time, it's called liminality. It is the state where you get in when you start to become aware from that liminal space, from that moment in between. it's a form of holding that tension like you had at that breath. I don't know if you had that one. If you're used to meditate, you're very calm. If you're not used, you can feel your heart beating very hard. You become aware of kind of tension until 7 is finished. You can breathe. That tension, that's something that you try to hold, and that's the feeling of liminality. But there is just the potential for transition, and that we can have authentic transformation. That's why they say meditation is so healthy. But we are talking about COVID-19. I just take you now through some terminology. So what are the characteristics of liminal space? That liminal space, you can experience some chaos or feeling of disruption. I think now with COVID-19, we can't say, no, everything is okay. No, there is chaos, there is disruption. Our life is, even today, someone said, a bookkeeper, he said, everything is on his head, we say, has turned around. The world is turned around. And that's very typical in that space. Suddenly you get disoriented. In the time, in space, you don't know anymore where you are. It's like when you are waking up in your dreams, you're somewhere, you're in your dreams, everything looks like reality. You're not aware of that, but that you are certainly at that place. But when you start to wake, you can imagine that moment where sometimes you say, where am I? Where am I? Ooh, oof. And you're coming back slowly. I am in my room. Just that moment before, that's the liminal space and that feeling of liminality. And also in the time, sometime in the day, I don't know if you experience as well. Now with these confinement measures, you stay all the time at home. Sometimes you go for a walk outside. But what's the time now? You get confused. What day is it? Oh, because Sunday suddenly starts to become the same as a Monday. I don't have a weekend anymore. Every day is the same. I like it, to be honest. But it's just that feeling. Sometimes you can also feel like emptiness. It depends how you are in the phase of your life. So questions of a sense of life can come up, especially existential questions, a human being, who am I in all this story? And it can happen, you become motionless. It happened to me. It's like suddenly I couldn't think anymore. I don't know why, because I'm a thinker, but I was in that liminal space. And then the feeling of not knowing, uncertainty, how difficult it is for us to handle that. We really don't know, and now still we don't know. We think it's finished, but no, here in Belgium, the epidemiologists, they say, be careful, people, it's not finished yet, but we don't know when it will be finished and what will be the consequences. We hear very dark stories already. And then especially that tunnel vision. I think you also hear COVID everywhere, even in your head. It's like there is only one being now for the moment that has taken us into that tunnel. So these are just some characteristics. There are more, but these are the ones that I recognized, especially in this space. So what do you think? Do you experience COVID-19 also as a liminal space? And if you want, you can put it in the chat and then we can look later. It's just nice to have some reactions on that. And especially, how do you experience it? Because that can maybe interesting later for Andrea. So now you know, or you can feel a little bit that liminal space. And maybe you say, yeah, but now I recognize where I am. And now I know, now I have a name for it. That's what happened to me. And one of our colleagues, Tina Fields, also talked about it in one of the first series. And it was put into a framework from Rite de Passage, because it's from there that it comes. It's Arnold van Gennep, a Belgian one. Anthropologist, he saw when he was studying tribes that when they have the rite of passage, that you have a sequence from a beginning, a separation, and then you go on a quest and you're in the middle, and there a lot of things happen with this feeling I have been described and with the characteristics. And then you have the coming back. But the only question I had, can we really talk about the rite of passage? In the beginning also, I thought like this, because ecopsychologists, we think like this. We start to look through rites, we like rites. But here I ask myself, oh, I think I missed that, or I missed it. First I asked myself, what is the threshold in this story? Oh yeah, it's COVID-19. That was a threshold, but I couldn't see it. It's in my head. I had to get over it. You see? But I was not prepared for it. Normally there is first the preparation for separation, and there we can say, okay, is climate change all that story and all our destructive behavior? That's maybe our preparation. That's a separation from nature connectedness. But I don't know. That maybe can be a way to think about it. That are just my reflections. And so I hope then we come back differently. But for that, we need some certain conditions if we want that liminal space that has so much potential can be transformative. In literature, you will probably find some more things. These are also my reflections, and it comes from literature, but I have been comparing it because we are ecopsychologists, and have been comparing it with how does it come that in nature we have transitional moments and we have that liminal space. That's what we do as eco-tuners. We are facilitating that liminal space from people. We help them, and something happens. So what is it? Well, what is very important is that we can surrender. Can we be open, totally open to that threshold, and be lucid to what happens, and especially with sensory awareness, to totally let it happen to us. I know this is very hard what I say, because COVID-19 kills so many people, and some people in your family might have died. I know this is very hard, but how would it be if we surrender to it, if we can embrace? It's just the way we can look to the virus, to something that attacks our physical body, and we can feel that, we get anxiety. So, do we surrender? And how would it be if we can embrace it with love? I'm sure some ecopsychologists will think like this. But it asks exercise, especially we are so influenced by the media. Everything is under control, you know, that's what they think. But we are dealing with nature. So surrender and just take that threshold. Open your door and go outside and open for it. The second point is the depth of experience. I like so much this researcher. He did a Ph.D, Zylstra. He is a colleague, I think, from Andrea. I don't know if she knows him. He's from South Africa. And he did a PhD about the nature connectedness and the relationship with sustainability. And he came to a definition from nature connectedness, but I took this piece here. From when do you have a meaningful nature experience? Because I think it can be a mirror in how we can deal with COVID-19. So a meaningful nature experience is triggered by an unexpected encounter with the non-ordinary in nature. And true, these are so lovely moments. The moment a deer suddenly shows his head where you normally don't see it in the woods. Well, if you're quiet, we can see it. Or an owl, it happened to me. I even told it to our colleagues from IES. An owl came to sit before me. That you would not expect. It was so beautiful. And it does something to you. You can't always say what it is. Of course, I go to look in the books. What does it mean? What does it mean? Why? Because we can't work well with uncertainty and we want to determine it, everything. But why not surrender to that moment and just that knowledge, that commit inside? And that specific moment is characterized by the sensory awareness. All our senses are open and we have deep emotional responses and physiological responses. You know that feeling? Yeah, that's it. You see, that moment, that breath that you take inside, there it happens, that liminal space. And you get so many ecological information inside. That's my invitation for all our society. Let's keep our breath a little bit inside and listen to that stillness and what that virus does to us and to what it invites to us. So, and the next thing that is important is the incorporation. You got that knowledge and you start to use it as an inner compass. You start to make new choices in your life. You have changed. Something has happened, how small it all also is, but it's something good for the ecological system, your system and system around you. So, to make a conclusion, is COVID-19 a liminal space? Yes, but for me, it's a missed opportunity. A really missed opportunity, especially when I look how government is dealing with it. Of course, they do their best. It's new knowledge, and they do the best to save so many people. But we see so many things also happening in so many countries, and we can't speak about use of potentiality. And I'm sorry, I don't feel so positive about what will happen afterwards. I don't see the surrender. We are controlling so much. I see a lack of depth of experience, especially when we go into nature. I don't know if it's in your country also. They say it's good to move outside, but they don't say experience nature. Can you imagine if government would add ecopsychological view? How that would be? How would it be if they can use COVID-19 as a transformational moment? I know many people say you're idealistic. I think no. If we would have some people with an ecopsychological view in the government, maybe you would have some other confinement measures. And in incorporation, well, we see differences. There's more telework, there's less traveling, but will it last? Today I said to my colleagues, so busy outside, cars everywhere, so many noise. It's like a bomb has how we say that? A bomb has fallen. So, and there are already systemic unpredicted consequences. You can look it up. It's a report from an organization that works around sustainable development goals. So it's not very positive to tell this. We have a big problem. But do we need a rite of passage? Yes, I think so. And that's what we miss. And that's use that liminal space that is normally in that rite of passage. And then to end, the good news is ecopsychologists can play a role. We can frame ecological crisis, I made it wider here, into an opportunity for transformation. We can facilitate, we can do that. We are skilled for that, the transformative liminal space with Mother Earth at our side. All information is there. And we can just raise awareness about our relationship with nature during crisis, because for me, personal crisis is at the same time an ecological crisis and reverse. So, anyway, in the eye of the storm, hope is a choice. And with this ending, I thank you all for listening, and I hope we can continue our conversation afterwards. And I'm give the word back to Julianne.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that. There are some really beautiful nuggets in there that we can discuss at the end. So thank you so much for your beautiful presentation. Let's all just take a deep breath too, because now we're in the liminal space between Anne and Andrea. So much possibility going on here, so much richness. Thank you. Well, we carry on our brilliant presentations now with Dr. Andrea Marais, and I'm going to introduce her more thoroughly. Andrea is our IES representative from South Africa, and she specializes in the human nature nexus with a focus on ecopsychology, climate change, and individual differences. She is passionate about both contributing empirically and theoretically, and I would say practically, to the field of ecopsychology while being actively involved in local environmental nonprofit organizations. And she's currently setting up a Nature Nexus Academy. I love that. She spends her free time as an activist for animal rights and hosting vegan cooking demonstrations. And Andrea is an amazing chef. Today, Andrea will talk about individual relationships with the virus and asks, is the virus a friend or a foe? I'll hand it over to you, Andrea.
So thank you very much for that introduction, Julianne. So yes, I'll be talking about our relationship with the virus. I've been very interested just to understand a platform for different narratives that people have about the virus. Just thinking about, individual emergent perspectives and how do individual psychologies play a role in how people relate or not relate to the virus, and also understanding individual experiences of the virus. So these were the kind of questions I was asking myself because I was stuck in my own mind trying to think my own thoughts about my own experience. But then the ecopsychologist in me came out and said, hey, wait a minute, there's other people too experiencing this. So the kind of questions I was wondering is, do people think the virus comes from nature? Do they think it's natural? Do they think it's a consequence of our relationship with nature? Is our relationship with nature unnatural? What impact does the virus have on the way people see the world and social isolation? How do they experience that? Even what kind of emotions are people feeling? I mean, we've got such a broad spectrum of emotions as humans. What are people feeling? And the virus as something that's unseen in everyday life, how do people think the virus is? If it had to be a person, what would it look like? So to answer my own questions, I went and I did a little 5-question qualitative pilot study. So big clause here, it's a small study and it's qualitative and it's a pilot study. So this isn't all the answers. This is just really a dipstick study to get an idea, but it would be great to explore these questions further with a larger sample size and across different countries. So the 5 questions I asked started with, what are people's relationship to nature? So for that, I used the connectedness to nature scale developed by Meyer and Franz. And then to understand people's relationship with a virus, I used the nature nexus enabling technique. The question 2 was really, how has the virus impacted the way you see the world? And what emotions do you feel when you think about the virus? That was question 3. Question 4 was a personification of the virus. So if the virus was a person, what would they look like? What would it look like? And question 5 was just an undirected dialogue if people wanted to share anything else. So in my small qualitative study, I had 12 females and 3 males. It's always interesting. I don't know if you find it in your country, but here in South Africa, there's always more females participating in when we ask questions about nature and emotional stuff. In terms of countries, I had 11 South Africans participate, 2 people from the Americas and 2 people from Europe. In terms of my connectedness to nature findings, 2 people that participated were only moderately connected with nature, 11 were moderate to highly connected, and 2 were highly connected. What you see now in front of you is the nature nexus enabling technique. So this is why I said to people, okay, think about your relationship with a virus. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. Which picture do you think represents the relationship that you have with a virus? And I'll pause for a few seconds just for you to have a look at the pictures. Maybe you can choose one that you think fits your relationship with a virus. Okay, I'm moving on. So connectedness to nature. So what did the connectedness to nature findings tell me about the way people responded? And this was quite interesting, although predicted, that people who are moderately connected with nature tended to focus on themselves when they responded to the questions, and also tends to talk about feeling isolated during this time. Those that were moderate to highly connected expressed both individual and collective perspectives of the virus. And those 2 people who had high connectedness to nature were actually 2 people who had the virus and then recovered. So I'm not sure if they were highly connected to nature because they had the experience of recovering from the virus, or if they were highly connected before they had the virus. So the interesting part, what are people's relationship with the virus? There are 5 different types of relationships. The first is the virus as a teacher. So for these people, they chose those 2 pictures most often. So they felt that the virus forced them to evolve as an individual to survive. They had to move forward towards improving and redesigning their lives and learning from their mistakes. They interpret the virus as a tipping point in their life between what they knew before and now something different, what they know now. And they also said that they've been learning that what impacts animals also impacts us as humans. In my little bubble here is the emotional response to this type of relationship. So for people who saw the virus as a teacher, they said they feel respect when they think about the virus, hopefulness, ennui, and sometimes even frustration. For them, they lost a sense of certainty in their lives from experiencing the virus. So the next relationship is the mirror. So for these people, they most often chose this particular picture. And for them, they said the virus is a consequence of our destructive consumption. They say humans are the monster, so that's why they chose that picture. They said the virus isn't the monster. They said the virus shows us how wet markets are cruel and destructive and a shadow of our human lifestyles, and that we are faced with this. When faced with this, it feels like an out-of-body experience. So the emotions associated with this kind of relationship with a virus is sadness, confusion, and disappointment. And there's a loss of positivity for people who relate to the virus in this way. The next relationship is where the virus is seen as a subject for observation. So these people see connecting with the virus through disconnecting from the virus. They believe that nature is not part of this whole virus, it's unnatural and perhaps even engineered. These people tend to shift their perspective about the virus the whole time. And some of them chose the picture of the dead dolphin because they said the virus is humanity looking at itself dying, but without even noticing that it's looking at itself dying. Some see the virus as a puppet master, showing dualistic human existence. We're both good and evil, and we both cause intentional versus unintentional harm to the planet. And for these kind of people, this relationship represented a loss of connectivity because they disconnect to connect. The next relationship with the virus is the kidnapper. So for these people, they said, I feel trapped, I'm falling apart. There's a breakdown between humans and the natural world. They express that they're bound indoors. They feel like they have no freedom, just like they're kidnapped by the virus. These people feel powerless to change the course of the virus. But interestingly, for some of them, there was an emergence of the Stockholm syndrome, where some of them felt like they're being kidnapped, but again, they thought, maybe the virus is an ally to see the world differently. For these people, they feel anger, insecurity, distrust, and there's a loss of safety. The next relationship is where they see the virus as their intimidator. It's bigger and more powerful than humanity. There's no control. They just have to collapse and give in to the virus because they're unable to cope. They think they don't have enough knowledge about the virus, and that is making them feel vulnerable, and that the true impact of the virus is veiled. They say that the virus makes humanity feel small, but it's quite interesting that this picture was chosen again to represent this type of relationship because it's a hand that's the puppet. So is it the virus that's the intimidator, or is it humanity? It shows the power of humanity's impact on the earth. In this type of relationship, there's fear, there's vulnerability, there's anxiety and overwhelm, and a loss of confidence. So looking at these different relationships that individuals have with the virus, we see at the bottom, there's vulnerability. Then there's a suspended space, which we might want to call a liminal space, now that we've seen Ann's presentation. And at the top, there's an awakening. At the bottom, there's people who focus on their individual experience towards people who focus on the collective experience. So the virus as a kidnapper is a relationship that shows vulnerability and an individual that's focusing on themselves. It's not wrong at all. It's just for us to understand how people are moving through this period in time. The virus as the intimidator is also a vulnerable relationship, but it moves between an individual and a collective perspective of the virus. The observed relationship is a suspended relationship. It's not an awakening. It's not a vulnerable position. It's not about the individual or the collective. So this is what I would say is a liminal kind of relationship, moving perhaps towards an awakening or not, maybe moving back to being vulnerable. Seeing the virus as the teacher, these kind of individuals move between an individual and a collective space, but they're moving towards an awakening because they're seeing everything as a new learning about life and about themselves and about other people. Then the virus as the mirror of our own humanity and our own shadows as a species is an awakening on a collective level. So then I asked people, okay, how has the virus impacted your worldview at this point in time? And there were two worldviews that emerged. The one was that it's the big unraveling. There's a vulnerability of humankind. people who participated say that we actually have a lack of free will as people. They said that they started seeing greed, they started seeing manipulation, and how dependent we are on things like air travel and decisions that political powers make. People also said, I've been seeing an interconnectedness, how consumption choices by one can negatively impact the entire world. There's also an unraveling of social issues, racism, poverty, and even prejudice. They say they can see now more clearly the dualistic nature of being human. A lot of them shared experience of seeing both care and hate from the same people in their lives during this time. Interestingly, this big unraveling also for some of the participants showed the human desire for short-term self-preservation versus long-term climate change impacts. And what this means is that how powerful can we become when we focus on our lives and our livelihoods right now? But when we think about climate change that is so far in the future, we just act like it's not existing. So it's a distraction from ecocide. The second worldview is what the BBC called the ANTHROPAUSE, the considerable global slowing down of modern human activities. What people who identified with this worldview said was because there's a pause, a silence, they had to slow down. They were forced to start creating a meaningful life in other ways, working less, and a lot of people realized that we need less than we actually think we do. So I'm not going to read through the quotes. I know that there isn't enough time, but it's really about what do people see the virus as? So I asked them, if the virus was a person, what would this person look like? This sometimes gives us a good idea of how people are relating to something. So some people saw the virus as an old, wise woman, maybe somebody like Gaia balancing the earth, or a king disciplining its kingdom. But some said it could even be an old wise woman who's faceless, or a giant, overwhelming and powerful and looking over us. The other perspective of the virus was that it's malicious, menacing, immature, selfish, and even a murderer. So I'll read this quote by one of the participants. I'm nearly finished. It is part of the interconnected life on Earth. It is neither good nor evil. Humans have exploited nature without the consciousness of understanding that all life is connected. Human life is sustained by the balance of nature. The virus or any other human threat is completely neutral or agnostic as to the outcome. A form of nature will exist regardless of our actions, but we may not find it very pleasant or in fact habitable for us to exist in. We have to show respect and gentleness in our actions to survive. So in conclusion, what does all of this mean for us as practitioners? I can only say that for myself, this tiny little research study means that we need to learn to work with people or individuals who are psychologically prepared versus unprepared for pandemics, natural disasters, and other crises that we are going to face in the future. It also shows that we need to understand the psychological processes that people go through during crises like these. Do people find meaning in suffering that helps them be resilient? Or does their suffering cause them pain and isolation? This study also made me think of deep adaptation, that is a concept introduced by Professor Jem Bendel, which states that climate change is so far gone that we can't fix it anymore, and the only thing we can do is to deeply adapt to the changes that are happening now and will happen in the future. And I was thinking that perhaps this virus is already a start of that. Nature saying to us, you need to learn to deeply adapt to what the future holds. Then lastly, in terms of the different types of relationships, as practitioners, we can potentially look at our clients and try to see if they're perhaps a kidnapper kind of relationship. They might be in the caterpillar phase, feeling a bit vulnerable. They can't see the world from a broader level. They just have to focus on themselves and they're consuming just to survive every single day. Or perhaps our clients are in a cocoon, a teacher busy learning how they can transform from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Perhaps they're just observing the world in this new cocoon that they're in, being a bit disconnected from the real world. Or perhaps they're feeling intimidated by the world because they're stuck in a cocoon, they can't move anywhere, but they know that there's something else that's going to happen. Or perhaps our client is a mirror kind of relationship. So already the butterfly that's reached a stage of awakening, they can see the world more clearly and take different perspectives of what's happening. So that's everything I wanted to say about my small research study to try and figure out how people are experiencing all of this on a psychological process kind of way. So thank you, Julianne. That's me.
Wow. Andrea, that was so impressive how much work you did in a very short amount of time, because I know you just sent that survey out. So you just collated all of that information with those beautiful graphics, like in 2 days or something. Yeah. That was really fascinating. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you, ladies, both. That was really fantastic. I just love this international web that we've created of consciousness and sharing. And so now we just have a few more minutes, about 5 more minutes, for any questions or topics of discussion that people who are listening would like to discuss or bring up. So if there's something that was brought up for you in either of the presentations, please put it in your chat box. Return back to Ann's presentation, and when you're talking about liminality, of course, I use liminality, liminal space a lot when I do my own ecotherapy, forest ecotherapy, and I have people like become conscious that they're moving in transition from a civilized place like the parking lot to a wild area of nature as a transition to return to ourselves as earthlings, as mammals, as opposed to human consciousness. And what came up for me when I was listening to you speak was about intention, that to go through this liminal state, this space, this time, to get the most out of it, the most transformation out of it, it's helpful to have an intention of what we want. Even if the intention is, I am asking for guidance, I am asking for direction, I am asking for purpose, I am asking to be shown, I am asking to be conscious and wakeful in every moment. So I think it's really important for people in this, like, you know, we've been in this dream state for 3 months and people are, you know, starting to come out of it. Is it too late to set an intention? You know, or is it like, okay, now it's just doing whatever it's doing, and I missed the opportunity 3 months ago when I went into hibernation? Or is it too late? That's my question.
I think thank you for your beautiful reflection, Julian. I love it. I think it's never too late to reflect, because of course all this talk we can work out more, and what we need is in this space to have the skills to reflect, and that's what a lot of people miss. We have to learn to reflect. Okay, what do I notice? What do I feel? And what I'm going to do with what I feel. And that's why I said, when you open your door and you go for a walk, You have put unconsciously an intention. You're going to be open for the world. So now, how can we say to ourselves, okay, what do I learn now from COVID-19? What does it mean to me? Because there it starts with our inner change. And then we can talk to each other like we do today. So it's never too late. I think we have to take every chance to reflect and put intentions.
Yes, great. Thank you for that. Andrea, do you want to comment on that or share?
No, I think you guys have covered it very well. I just think, you know, from what I've seen is that actually not everybody does use this as a liminal space. And that's what makes it interesting for me, because why aren't people seeing it as a liminal space, conscious or subconsciously? So yeah, it's just very interesting.
All the information we need already exists about is the virus a friend or a foe? The collective unconscious of humanity and the collective unconscious of the planet and our ecological unconscious and our consciousness itself pervades everything. We are in a constant process of movement. There really is there's no stagnation, and we're constantly in processes of thresholds to new states of our lives, both individually and collectively. What's been hard for me mostly is people feeling powerless during this, or getting frozen in and I feel like the frozenness is because this wasn't my plan. My plan was I was going to go to work and I was going to do this with my kids and stuff. And so I just once again see this as an opportunity to remember that, to expand our consciousness to like all the information exists in the universe, in the history of humanity, in human consciousness, in the consciousness of the earth. All this information, like this isn't the first time that humanity has gone through an epidemic. It's a cycle. And so I just encourage people to remember that there are resources in nature, in the earth, in consciousness, in ecopsychologists, on YouTube, that there is plenty of support available from the earth itself about how this transition is going to go, this transformation, that we're actively participating in this transformation, in this transition. And we are actively all have been going into this liminal rites of passage of we're going into the cave and we're going to come out with new information to bring back to the community, to bring back to the world. That instead of being passively victims, that we say, even if we are sick or we know someone who's died or something, like we're actively participating in this as a group. So that gives me like a lot of security, and I feel like I'm being held by a bigger process. Mm-hmm. So last chance for any more questions or comments. Someone said they were going to wait for the recordings because there's a lot of good information out there. Flor said, and indeed, this is, you can totally go back. There's so much rich material here. You can go back. We're going to post these videos. We've started posting them on the IES YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and look for International Ecopsychology Society, because there are many IES organizations out there. So you can search for that. And then in our newsletter, I'm just going to share my screen and give people some resources right now. So most of you are IES members already. Some of you may be tuning in to the recording for the first time and you're not familiar with IES. So just know that you can go to ies.bio and learn all about IES and who we are and who Ann and Andrea are and who I am. And then over here, you can learn about our upcoming conferences. And we're gonna post the links for all of the webinars. If you just link down here, go down here, all the webinars are gonna be linked to our YouTube channel, so you can watch them later as we post them. And then if you're not an IES member already, we really, really encourage you to join us. We are a fantastic community of really wonderful people all over the world, and this network, this net, this web that we've created really gives, for me, a lot of resiliency. I feel a lot of resiliency and strength, and knowing that there are so many like-minded, like-conscious people, human beings out there across the world, makes me feel very at home. Like even if I'm isolated in my home, I have this whole world available to me. So if you haven't joined IES yet, you can go to this, you can go to any page actually on the IES website and sign up for our newsletter, and be sure to choose the language, English, Spanish, Italian, or Portuguese. The website comes in 4 languages. So you would choose up here which language you need to read it in. And so you can also go to the membership page and learn about the different levels of membership. These webinars that we're giving, this is free and open to the public. We felt really strongly that this was really important information that everybody needed. So this is a gift to you, the world. And then if you're a member, there's special webinars that are just for you. And so there's different levels you can go to depending on what you want, or if you're a student, and what sort of benefits you get from there. And so also, if you haven't renewed, please renew. We really need your funding, your membership money, so that we can expand. We have all of these services available now that we have Zoom and the website and our YouTube channel and the newsletter, and we're just really, really expanding. And any bit of membership money is well spent. We are a volunteer organization. We're a volunteer nonprofit organization. All of our representatives work very hard to be of service to humanity and the planet. We're really, really dedicated people. And so we would love your support. We would love to see you in Brazil in 2022, and just just watch your newsletters for more information about that. You can also look, like I said, more on the website, and just follow us. And we would love for you to be more actively involved. Let me see if there's any more comments. There's so many really great comments. I'm really grateful for this webinar. The 3 of you are fantastic. Thank you, Ann and Andrew, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, thank you. I'm grateful for the insights brought to me by both presentations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, please rewatch it. And I encourage everyone to really take this time that we are in, instead of isolation. Some people are calling it a retreat. Take advantage of this time to set your intentions for what kind of life you want to lead, what we want for the world, what we want for the planet. And remember that the Earth is still struggling out there. The planet is still on fire. There are still species dying. There are still many, many aspects beyond the human sphere that are calling to our attention. So if that is what your strength is, even like, I don't even know what to do with my life now because I don't have a job yet, or something like that, think of the possibility of changing careers to like, this is the time to step up and be in service to the more than human world. This is really, I think, a pivotal opportunity of this crisis. And I think we would all agree that that there's so much good that can come out of this. There's so much consciousness, so much connection, that can happen. And I just want to thank you all for letting me express that. Andrea and Ann, is there any last words that you want to share with everybody?
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being our host. Julianne, you were incredible and wise, and it was just fantastic to have you coordinate this. And also thank you to Floor for just organizing everything in the background. And thank you to Anne for being my co-presenter. I think we spoke very well to each other's information. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, I'm so used in this liminal space to be so quiet. It was very triggering to prepare this presentation, really, because the liminal space, because what do we have to say about COVID-19? We don't know. And on the other hand, there is so much knowledge also, just as Julianne said, so beautiful in the universe and in nature. And the virus is telling us so much if we just listen well. Very grateful to be with all of you worldwide. This is amazing.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Anne. We're so excited to have you on board as a representative from Belgium. And I'm going to work on learning my Flemish and my Afrikaans so that I can speak with you, ladies. There has to be a lot of similarities, right? That was, yeah, that's a lot of, so you two can talk to each other. But just remember that we can all communicate through the language of the earth, and we can communicate with the earth. We can even communicate with the virus, and just to open up those channels and remember that you're never alone. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us, and until we see each other again, thank you.